My name is Lodewijk Abspoel and I work for the Dutch government, and I'm responsible for integrated maritime policy and, amongst others, maritime spatial planning and the land-sea interactions which are part of it.
So you mentioned maritime spatial planning. So for most of our audience, this is something far away. So can you give a short idea how it has developed and why your government, for example, is working on this?
Yes, absolutely. It's a pity that we're then far and disconnected with maritime spatial planning, because it's all about you. It's about human beings who tend to normally live on land and not at sea, apart from the seafarers. And indeed, maritime spatial planning might be relatively new and unknown, but see it as a very simple process. It's a process where we try to discover what we have with the sea, what the sea has of opportunities for us, and how our relation with the sea actually helps having a thriving economy, thriving social cultural life, whilst taking care of the vital eco-functions of the sea and the ocean system at large. We in the Netherlands started in 2009 when offshore wind deemed to be necessary to deliver the promised CO2 reduction level. And in 2013, after the publication of the Blue Growth document of the European Union, I started in the Netherlands a process which we call the Spatial Agenda for the North Sea in 2050. A process which is politically guided but stakeholder driven, where we try to see what the future of the sea would look like and how it would be beneficial to humans on land. One of the beautiful things in that process for me was to discover much more also about cultural heritage, underwater cultural heritage, and how active amateur wreck divers primarily are looking at the stories lost at sea and try to bring them back to society. But that's only one part of maritime spatial planning. In the end of the day, it's about political decision making on how to use the sea in the best way, taking care of the ecosystem and taking into account the values and benefits for humans on land, on the shore, but also when they are out at sea. Not only for leisure, but especially, of course, for work. It's a driven thing, and maritime spatial planning is particularly driven by economic activities. But given that, the economic activities are not the only thing there. In the Maritime Spatial Planning Directive, which I was able to negotiate, we paid quite a lot of attention to the more perceived soft elements in such a process. So it's a process, and at the end of the process of a maritime spatial plan, you have a new narrative, you have a new policy line, you have a new story actually, which you try to build up during the process. To complement on that, of course, then you have your offshore wind, you have your maritime activities, ports, harbors, shipping. It's all out there, it's all known. It's fisheries, it's food which goes to humans on land, and the fact of humans, this is very important, because humans are the only one be able to create the problem and then also solve problems. And sometimes it's necessary to actually engage with one another, to hear about one another's story. In the past, sea was enough space. Now we see more and more functions, also functions working together or working against one another. So it's important to bring all these ideas and ways of how people talk together. The language of a fisherman is completely different than the language of somebody doing offshore wind, or somebody who's working on the port side, for instance.